The sky above Earth was no longer dark. Space stations floated above the clouds like islands in the sea. Silver ships moved in silence across the stars. Humanity had come far from its early struggles. War, poverty, and disease had slowly faded. People had begun to dream again not of just surviving, but of becoming more. Years ago, Earth had joined the Galactic Union, a council made of hundreds of alien civilizations. The Union promised peace, technology, and unity. For once, humans felt they were part of something larger than themselves. They had struggled to earn a seat, but they did, and when they did, they believed the future would finally be fair. Ren stood in the Grand Union Hall, staring at the blue lights that floated across the chamber. He was a young diplomat, calm and sharp. His dark coat carried no medals, only a simple earth patch on the shoulder. Beside him stood Mila, a quiet and careful strategist with eyes that seemed to notice everything. On his other side stood Tor, once a ship engineer, now a speaker for the people of Earth's outer colonies. They had come to speak about new research-safe energy tech that could help low-gravity worlds grow food faster, something Earth had developed and wanted to share. But something was wrong. The chamber was not filled with welcome. It was filled with silence. Cold silence. A tall alien named Karanal, one of the senior union judges, stepped forward. His voice echoed like glass tapping metal. "You are not here to share," he said. "You are here to answer." Ren's heart slowed. He shared a quick look with Mila. She nodded slightly, ready for anything. "Answer what?" Tor asked, his voice firm. Karanal raised his hand. A screen lit up behind him. It showed a small lab on the edge of Union space. Flames, explosions, debris, then something glowing inside the wreckage. "This was your doing," Karanal said. "No," Ren replied at once. "We had no people on that station. We were never even near it." But the council did not listen. Another screen appeared. It showed a strange piece of code, human code mixed with data from a banned technology, tech that had been outlawed after an old war between planets. Tech that humans had never even seen. "You were warned," Karanal said. "No species may explore these paths. You broke that rule. And for that, there is only one path: exile." Tor stepped forward. "That's a lie," he said. "That's not our code. Someone's using our signals. You're being misled." But again, they were not heard. The vote was called. One by one, lights turned red. Dozens of worlds said yes to exile. Only a few turned blue to few. Ren felt something sharp in his chest. Not fear, not anger. Something deeper. Betrayal. When the vote ended, the sentence was carried out in hours. Earth's stargates were shut down. Trade routes were cut. Ships were blocked. Stations left to drift. Messages were ignored. Even allies grew silent. The Union moved quickly, as if it had prepared for this moment long before. Back on Earth, the news spread fast. People watched the skies grow empty. Satellites lost contact with Union systems. The great universities of Mars were disconnected. The shipyards in orbit stopped receiving supplies. Panic came, but not for long. Ren returned to Earth with Mila and Tor. They met in a small observatory, hidden in the mountains. No cameras, no drones. Only the wind and the stars above. "They never wanted us to grow," Tor said. "They saw us as a threat. We were moving too fast, learning too quickly. We were becoming something they didn't expect." Mila added. Ren looked up. He watched a small comet move across the night sky. "Then we stopped playing by their rules," he said. "We stopped chasing a seat at their table. If they don't want us in their world, then we build our own." Mila finished. The plan came fast. It had to. Earth had lost its place in the stars, but it still had its people. It still had its minds, its builders, its dreamers. They called it Operation Departure. No press, no speeches. Only action. Underground labs lit up again. Hidden factories began working day and night. Old stations were refitted with new engines. Deep space ships were prepared not to escape, but to vanish. What they were building was not a weapon. It was not a new planet. It was something different. Something no species had ever tried. A world not made of soil or steel, but of light and code. They call it the cradle. It was to be a place beyond borders, beyond physics, beyond fear. A digital sanctuary, powered by the deepest science Earth had ever created. A place where minds could live without decay, where thought was faster, where time was shaped by choice. They would not fight the Union. They would not beg. They would leave quietly, and they would never return. As weeks passed, the sky grew even more still. Earth went silent. Union probes came and found nothing. No signals, no heat, no life signs. It looked like a world that had given up. But inside the dark, inside deep space, a ship moved without light. Inside that ship, Ren sat in a chair with wires connecting him to a glowing panel. Mila stood beside him, checking readings. Tor gave a final nod from the control station. "Are you ready?" Mila asked. Ren took a breath. "Yes." The countdown began, and as the numbers reached 0, Ren's body stayed still, but his mind went elsewhere. The cradle opened. And humanity, one by one, stepped inside. The stars no longer held them. Reality no longer defined them, and those who once sat in judgment would soon learn humanity had not disappeared. They had simply evolved. The last human ship left Earth without a sound. No one outside saw it move. No signal was sent. It slipped into space like a whisper, disappearing into the dark where no stars were close. They called it the Ark, and it carried the first full version of the cradle. Inside the ship, the crew was small. Most had already transferred their minds into the cradle, but a few stayed behind to guide the systems. Tor watched the control board, making sure all drives stayed stable. Mila ran scans to ensure they left no trace behind, and deep in the core room, Ren's body rested quietly, already inside the new world they had created. The cradle was not a simple program. It was a universe, digital, yes, but alive in its own way. It was built using quantum code, powered by dark energy cores, and layered with time-bending functions inside it. Humans could live forever. They could walk, build, think, and dream as they had before. But there was no hunger, no pain, no war. Thought moved faster. Ideas became form. In the cradle, limits were only shadows, while other species focused on ships, weapons, and borders. Humanity had chosen something different. They built a path inward, a new way to live, where matter was replaced with mind, and mind was free. Tor leaned back in his seat, watching the data streams. They were far from Union space now. The Ark had moved beyond old star maps, into regions no one cared to explore. Empty space, cold and forgotten, just what they needed. "They will try to follow one day," he said. Mila looked at him. "They will try, but they won't find us." She pulled up a display. It showed the cradle's signal spread, small bursts of quantum information bouncing between hidden satellites. None of it was readable to outsiders. Each signal was wrapped in living encryption, a kind that shifted every second. Only human minds could unlock it. "They think we are running," Tor said. Mila shook her head. "We are not running. We are changing." Back inside the cradle, Ren opened his eyes. He stood on a bright green field. The sky above was filled with colors not seen in the real world. Blue blended with gold. Stars danced slowly, like leaves in the wind. Mountains floated in the distance, not bound by gravity. Birds with crystal wings flew in circles overhead. Ren smiled. He walked forward and felt the ground respond to his steps. Each blade of grass bent gently. The wind blew not with force, but with music. Others were there too. Thousands, more arriving each day. Scientists, artists, children, elders, builders, dreamers, all free now from the pain of the old world. Their bodies had stayed behind, resting in stasis chambers or passing quietly into memory. But their minds, bright and full, were here. The cradle had become their true home. Back in the real world, Earth looked quiet. Union scouts came to check, but found nothing. No life signals, no movement, only silence. They saw dry cities, quiet oceans, and empty stations. The planet looked abandoned. Some believed the humans had turned on each other. Some thought they had destroyed themselves in secret war. Others claimed Earth had fallen to madness. But none of these were true. The truth was simpler. Humanity had chosen to leave. Not just the Union. Not just their homes. They had left reality itself, and they were not coming back. Years passed in the outside world. But inside the cradle, time was different. A day in reality was only an hour here. A year outside meant a decade of life inside. In that time, humans did not grow lazy. They created floating cities, crystal libraries, and seas that could think. They played with math and music. They turned forgotten dreams into living creatures. They found peace, not because they were forced, but because they chose. Ren met with the Council of Minds, a group of thinkers who guided the cradle. Not rulers, but listeners. Their job was not to command, but to understand. We are not alone. Mila told the council during one session. She had entered the cradle like the others. Her body remained back on the ark, but her spirit walked the digital grasslands. Ren looked at her. You mean Union scouts? No, she said. I mean whispers, traces, signals from the edge of known space. Not close, but not far either. Tor joined the meeting. They might be looking, curious now. Maybe they heard something. Then, we go deeper, Ren said. The council agreed. They sent probes beyond the ark. Into the outer layers of space, they moved the cradle's core further away, into a region known only by number Sector 980, a dead zone. No stars, no light, no sound, a perfect hiding place. Inside the cradle, humanity began to unlock deeper levels of the system. New layers opened, ones that allowed more control, more beauty, and more growth. Some began to test limits, not to break rules, but to understand what was possible. They had no need for war, but they studied defense. They had no wish for control, but they learned to protect. They had no plans to return, but they watched the stars just in case. On the outside, the Union grew restless. The lies they had told about Earth began to crack. Smaller species started asking questions. Why had Earth been removed? Why so quickly? Why was there no proof? Whispers began to move through the council chambers. Maybe humanity had been framed. Maybe the Union had feared what humans might become. But there was no answer. Earth was gone, and no signal could find them. One day, a Union scout ship picked up something strange. A pulse, short and light, almost like a wave. It came from far beyond known routes. The signal was not clear, but it carried a simple tone. Not a message, just a sound, like a breath across glass. They tracked it for weeks, but it vanished into a fold of space. No one could trace it again. Inside the cradle, Ren stood at the edge of a digital ocean. He looked out and saw stars forming new shapes. He smiled. We are still here, he said quietly. Just not where they expect. Mila joined him. They will keep searching. Ren nodded. Let them search. We are not lost. We are free. Tor stood behind them, watching the sky, and they will never understand what we became. Above them, in the sky that only minds could see, a message formed. In golden light, this is not the end, this is only the beginning. Years passed outside, but time flowed differently inside the cradle. What felt like decades in this digital world was only a few short years in the real galaxy. And in those decades, humanity changed. They were no longer just users of the cradle. They had become its creators, its builders, its dreamers. Every corner of the cradle was shaped by human mind, cities that floated in the clouds, forests that whispered stories, oceans that remembered the past. Ren stood at the center of one such city, a place called Lamora. The buildings were made of shining glass and soft light. There were no roads. People moved by thought. Children played among floating gardens. Artists painted with energy and memory. The city had no walls because there were no enemies. But not everyone was at peace. Mila sat inside the observation tower, a high spire that watched both the cradle and the outside universe. Though she had peace inside, her mind stayed alert. She tracked signals. She watched for movement beyond the cradle's hiding place. She noticed a change. Something small, a whisper, A flicker in the data streams. It came from the far edges of space. Not a ship, not a weapon, a scan, careful and slow. Not loud, but real. She called for Ren. When he entered the tower, Mila turned the screen toward him. Someone is looking, she said. Ren studied the pattern. Not Union military, he said. No, Mila replied. This scan is patient, curious. They are not searching for war. They're searching for truth. Ren stayed quiet for a moment. Then he said, send a reflection. Mila nodded. She didn't send a message. Instead, she used the cradle's own energy to send a soft wave, a small signal, hidden in the folds of space. Not enough to be found, but enough to be noticed by someone clever. This was the first time the cradle reached back. Far from them, in a small corner of Union space, the wave was received by a small research ship named Sora's Wing. It was not a warship. It carried no weapons, only scientists, explorers, and a pilot named Dallin, who once believed the Union's stories about Earth. He had studied old human records, songs, books, and art. He found them strange, sometimes messy, but full of heart. He never believed the humans destroyed themselves. He believed they had been pushed away. When the wave touched his ship's sensors, Dallin felt it. It was not loud, not dangerous, but it was there, a signal unlike anything he had seen, smooth, clear, and perfect. He recorded it, sent it to the Union Council, and waited for a reply. But no reply came. Instead, his ship was ordered to return. He refused. Instead, he followed the signal. Back in the cradle, Tor was building something new. He had always been a maker, a thinker. Now he worked with digital tools unlike anything in the real world. He helped design a place inside the cradle called the Core Mirror, a center where human knowledge was stored, updated, and shared. He smiled as he watched younger minds explore it, children who had never seen Earth, who were born inside the cradle, learning about stars, science, history, and imagination. But Tor also knew the truth. One day, someone from outside would reach them, and when that day came, they needed to be ready. So, they began training not with weapons, but with skill. Some learned to guide the cradle's systems. Some learned to control data like wind. Others learned to speak with machines, using thought alone. They called these people weavers. They were not soldiers. They were guardians of balance. One of them, a girl named Lena, was only 16 when she discovered how to shift time inside the cradle. She didn't do it with force. She simply thought of a world where time healed faster, and the system responded. Humanity was no longer just using the cradle. They were becoming part of it. Meanwhile, Dallin's ship, Sora's Wing, reached the edge of the dark zone where the cradle hid. There was no light here, no stars, only silence. Yet his instruments picked up echoes data that moved like wind across water. He paused the ship and sent out a greeting. It was short, simple. If you are there, I do not come with harm. I only seek the truth. Then he waited. Inside the observation tower, Mila read his message. Ren joined her. What do? We answer, she said. But not with words, Tor added, entering the room. With understanding, together, they crafted a small piece of code. It held a single image Earth, viewed from orbit, surrounded by silence and stars. They sent it to Dallin's ship. Dallin received it. He stared at the image for a long time. Then, without speaking, he turned his ship around and left. He did not report what he saw. He saved the image. He knew the truth now. Earth had not died. Humanity had not vanished. They had become something else. Back in Union space, whispers began to rise. Rumors of a ghost signal, a strange wave, a ship that went to the dark and returned silent. The Union denied everything, but those who listened closely began to wonder. Inside the cradle, Ren walked with Mila along the edge of a glowing lake. He looked at her and said, "It has begun, hasn't it?" Mila nodded. "Yes, we are no longer forgotten. The stars remember us." Tor joined them, holding a scroll made of light. "I have something to show you," he said. He opened the scroll. Inside was a design map of a new cradle layer. one that would allow them to observe without being seen, to listen without speaking. They would not strike, they would not invade, but they would watch, and they would wait. Above them, the sky of the cradle shifted. A new message formed. We are still here who do not need to return, but we remember. The ship's soar's wing floated near the edge of deep space. Round it, there were no stars, no planets, no stations, just silence. The ship's systems were running normally. But something had changed. Dallin, the pilot, sat quietly in his seat. He stared at the small screen in front of him. It showed the image he had received days ago, a view of Earth from orbit, sent by someone, or something, out there in the darkness. He still remembered the message that came with it. No words, just a feeling, peace, distance, and a quiet memory of home. Dallin knew the Union would not believe him. If he shared the image, they would call it fake. If he told them what he felt, they would say he imagined it. So he stayed silent. But he was not the only one who noticed the signal. Back in Union space, small signs began to appear. A scout drone went dark near a quiet sector. A science station received a strange echo that repeated once every 10 hours. A cargo ship's AI shut down for 5 minutes, then came back online speaking in perfect, peaceful human language even though no humans had been aboard. None of these events were harmful. Nothing was destroyed. No lives were lost, but they shared something in common. Each left behind a trace of strange code. Clean, organized, gentle. An unmistakably human. In the cradle, Mila sat inside a chamber made of light. She looked at a screen filled with data from the outside. The cradle was still hidden, deep in the silent zone, but it had started reaching beyond. Not to attack, not to control, only to listen, and sometimes to remind the galaxy that humanity still existed. Ren entered the chamber. His steps made no sound on the glowing floor. They are noticing, Mila said. Ren nodded. We expected this. They do not understand, she added. They don't need to. Not yet. Elsewhere in the cradle, Tor met with the young weavers. These were people who had trained to move through the cradle systems with thought. They could guide signals, read data, and shape parts of the digital world. One of them, a boy named Kyo, raised his hand. Are we going back? He asked. To the real world. Tor smiled. No, the cradle is our home now, but we will watch. And if the time comes, we will speak. But what if they come here? Kyo asked. Tor's face grew serious. Then they must be ready to understand us. The weavers nodded. They were not afraid. They were born inside the cradle. To them, space was just another idea. They had no memory of Earth's wars or the Union's betrayal. But they knew the truth. Humanity had not given up. It had moved forward. Far away, in a quiet station near Union border space, a technician named Rilo sat at his desk. He worked alone. His job was to track lost signals and clean up old data. Most of his days were quiet and dull. But today, he found something strange. It was a file with no source. Just a short recording, hidden deep in a damaged storage bank. He played it once. It was a voice. Human, calm, clear. We remember. That was all. He played it again. We remember. No name, no sender, no background noise. Just that one line. Spoken like a promise, Rilo leaned back in his chair. He had studied human history. He had read the old reports. The official story said Earth had violated Union law and was removed for safety. But the more he read, the less it made sense. Now, hearing that voice, he knew something was wrong. He downloaded the file and kept it hidden. He didn't report it. He didn't share it. But he started asking questions. Back in the cradle, Mila saw the field's movement. She smiled. Someone is starting to doubt, she said. Ren stood beside her. Good. Doubt is the first step to truth. Tor joined them. Are we ready for more contact? Ren thought for a moment. Then he said, not yet. For now, we let them wonder. That same night, another Union ship picked up a strange signal near an asteroid field. The crew scanned it and found nothing dangerous, just a soft light glowing from inside an old satellite. When they opened it, they found a single crystal with human code inside. It was not a weapon, it was a story. The crystal held an entire memory a day on Earth. Long before exile, it showed people walking through a forest, children laughing, a teacher explaining how leaves turn sunlight into life. A message of peace and growth. The crew sat in silence as they watched. Then they left the satellite where it was, back in Union Central. More stories like this began to surface. A music file played inside an empty relay tower. A drawing of Earth appeared on a damaged cargo screen. A message carved into the wall of an old outpost. Written in glowing blue lines. Each one simple, each one peaceful, each one human. The Union Council grew nervous. Some members said it was just leftover data from before Earth's exile. Others believed something had returned. A quiet fear began to spread. But fear was not what the cradle wanted. Inside the core mirror, Tor stood with a group of builders. They were designing a new layer of the cradle, one that could reach deeper into unclaimed space. A place where messages could pass without being blocked. We are not sending warnings, Tor reminded them. We are sending memories. Ren arrived to review the design. He added one change: a soft light at the center of the map, a symbol of a tree growing on a floating island. Let them see what we have become, he said. Later, in the sky of the cradle, a new message appeared. Not a voice, not a command, just words shaped by light. We are still here. Who did not vanish, who did not forget somewhere in the quiet corners of the galaxy. A child looked up from a small village and saw the same message glowing in the night sky, written by an unseen hand. Her parents told her it was just a dream, but she smiled because she believed. Inside the cradle, the digital universe continued to grow and change. It was no longer just a refuge. It had become a living world made of thought, memory, and endless possibility. Ren stood at the edge of a vast city called Elysia. This place was different from Lemora. Elysia was made of flowing light and endless halls of knowledge. People from across the cradle gathered here to share ideas, stories, and wisdom here. There were no borders or divisions. Everyone was a part of one mind, connected by shared purpose. Ren walked beside Mila and Tor. They were no longer just leaders or watchers. They had become guardians, not of power, but of balance. Something changes outside, Mila said quietly. Tor nodded. The Union's fear grows. They feel our presence, but they do not understand us. Ren looked up at the glowing sky. A sky made not of stars, but of glowing threads of energy connecting every mind. We must prepare for their questions, Ren said, not with anger, but with patience. Mila turned to him. They have started sending probes, silent ones. Machines that watch without speaking. Tor smiled gently. We will welcome them. At that moment, a group of young weavers entered the hall. Among them was Lena, the girl who had learned to shift time inside the cradle. She approached them. Guardians, there is a new signal, different from before. It is curious, almost alive. Ren's eyes narrowed. Show me. Lena pulled up the signal on a glowing screen. It was not like the others. This one had layers, patterns that shifted as if thinking. It was not just data. It was a message wrapped in a puzzle. We do not know who sent it, Lena said, but it feels like a greeting or an invitation. Mila frowned. Could it be from the Union? Tor shook his head. No, this is something else, something new. Ren studied the signal closely. We should reply, but carefully. They began crafting an answer, a message full of images and ideas. Not words. A message that said, we are here. We listen. We wait. Meanwhile, far away in Union space, Down sat in his ship. He had chosen not to return to the Union. Instead, he traveled quietly, following the strange signals, learning what he could. One day, he received a new message from the cradle. He smiled. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It was hope. He sent a reply of his own, not with words, but with music, soft, gentle sounds that echoed the feelings of the cradle. As the exchange continued, others began to notice, scientists, explorers, and even some Union leaders who still believed in truth and peace. They called. themselves the Silent Guardians, a small group dedicated to listening, understanding, and protecting the new connection between humanity and the galaxy. Inside the cradle, Ren met with the Silent Guardian's signal. He felt their presence like a warm light touching his mind. They come with open hearts, he said. Milo smiled. Then we must do the same. Tor looked at the council. This is a new beginning, but not everyone outside welcomed the change. Some in the Union saw the contact as a threat. They pushed for weapons, for blockades, for silence. A new leader in the council, a man named Valen, rose with harsh words. We cannot trust a ghost. We must destroy any signal. We must prepare for war. His voice was strong, but not everyone agreed. Quiet voices whispered in halls and chambers. They spoke of truth, of hope, and of the future. Back inside the cradle, the people continued to build. They knew the day might come when they had to defend what they had created, but they hoped it would not. Lena stood beside Ren and Mila in the council hall. What if they never understand us? She asked. Ren looked at her kindly. Then, we keep trying, because that is what humanity does. Suddenly, the signal from outside changed. It was no longer just a message. It had become a question. It asked, "Who are you really?" The question echoed through the cradle. Ren answered silently, "We are the future." Outside, Dallin prepared to send the answer. The galaxy waited. And humanity, in a new form, watched and listened. The cradle pulsed with light and energy, every mind connected, every thought a ripple in the great digital sea. But beneath the surface, a quiet tension grew. Ren stood before the council chamber, surrounded by trusted friends. Mila, Tor, Lena, and others watched as he prepared to answer the signal. The question from outside had come with no explanation, no hint of its sender. Just one clear phrase. "Who are you really?" It was a simple question, but it carried the weight of ages. A question that demanded more than data or words. It demanded truth. Ren closed his eyes and felt the pulse of the cradle inside him. He remembered Earth, the blue planet, the green forests, the laughter of children, and the betrayal that had sent humanity away. "We are the children of Earth," he said softly, "but we are more than what you knew. We are the hope that survived." Mila stepped forward. "We left because we were betrayed, because our home was taken from us, but we did not vanish. We chose a new way, a place where we could grow beyond fear." Tor added, "We are the memory of humanity and the dream of its future. We are the cradle." Lena looked at the council and then at the glowing sky above them. "We are proof that even when reality breaks, life finds a way." Together, they crafted their answer. Not with words alone, but with light and sound and thought. They sent a message full of images of Earth's forests, of children playing, of stars shining. They sent memories of kindness, courage, and peace. Outside the cradle, the signal traveled across space. It reached many ears, many minds. Some heard only static, others heard a song that carried warmth and hope. On the ship's Sora's wing, Dallin listened carefully. He felt a deep connection. He knew this was the real message of humanity, one of light, not war. But in the Union Council, not all were pleased. Valen, the new leader, grew angry. "This is manipulation," he said, "a trick to weaken us. We must prepare defenses. We must silence them before it is too late." Others in the council argued back. "We cannot fight ghosts," a woman said. "Maybe this is a chance for peace." The council was divided. Meanwhile, the Silent Guardians worked quietly. They studied the signals, protected the exchange, and shared hope with those who dared to listen. Dallin met with them in secret. He showed them the images from the cradle. They called it the light of Earth, a reminder that humanity's spirit was alive, even if hidden. Back in the cradle, Lena practiced her skill to bend time. She thought of the past and future, of what might be. "What if they do not accept us?" she asked Ren. He smiled gently. "Then we wait, because the truth is patient." One day, a new message came from outside. It was different from before. Not a question, but a gift. A small data package arrived, wrapped in layers of complexity. Inside was a recording of a human voice, clear and warm. "I am Dallin," it said. I am a listener. I seek to understand. Will you let me come closer? The council studied the message carefully. Ren said, "This is the moment we have waited for." Mila nodded. "We will open a path, but only if trust grows." Tor began building a bridge of connection between the cradle and the outside world. Not physical, but digital. A way for minds to meet safely. As the bridge grew, more messages came. Explorers, scientists, and dreamers sent their greetings. Some were afraid, some hopeful. In the Union Council, the tension grew. Valen pushed harder for war, but others spoke louder for peace. The galaxy watched. And the cradle waited. Ren looked up at the glowing threads above. "We are ready," Lena smiled. "We will show them who we are," Mila whispered, "because we remember." The message was clear. Humanity had not disappeared. It had only changed. And now, it was time to return, not in ships or weapons, but in light and understanding. The cradle shimmered with light, brighter than ever before. Threads of energy danced through the great digital sky, weaving stories, memories, and dreams into one living whole. Ren stood at the heart of Elysia, watching as the bridge between the cradle and the outside universe grew stronger. This bridge was not made of metal or stone, but of understanding and trust. It was fragile, yet powerful. Around him, the council and the weavers worked together to keep the connection alive. Mila and Tor spoke quietly, their minds joined in silent harmony. Outside, the galaxy watched in wonder. The silent guardians continued to protect the flow of messages. Slowly, barriers of fear began to crumble. Dallin sat in his ship, listening to a stream of voices and images flowing through the bridge. These were the voices of people inside the cradle, people who had never left Earth, but had grown beyond it. He smiled, feeling hope for the first time in many years. In the Union Council, the war cries grew quieter. Some leaders saw the truth shining through the messages, others held on to fear. But they were fewer now. Valen remained stubborn, but even he could not stop the rising tide. A new day came when the first visitor crossed the bridge. It was not a soldier. It was not a spy. It was a child. Her name was Mira. Mira was curious and brave. She had grown up hearing stories about Earth and humanity's exile, but she had never seen the truth. When she stepped into the cradle, her eyes widened. The world around her was unlike anything she had imagined, made of light and music and endless possibility. Ren and Mila greeted her warmly. They showed her the forests made of data, the rivers of memory, and the skies filled with glowing threads. Mira laughed, a sound like music. "This is home," she said. "Not the one I knew, but better." Tor smiled. "And it is only the beginning." Mira spent days exploring. She met weavers who could move through time and builders who shaped new worlds. She learned the stories of Earth's past and the dreams of its future. As she grew to understand the cradle, she became a bridge herself, a symbol of hope between two worlds. Back in Union space, more people followed Mira's path. They crossed the bridge not in ships, but in mind and spirit. They shared knowledge, art, and friendship. The galaxy began to heal. One evening, Ren and Mila stood together and looked toward the stars. "We have returned," Ren said softly. Mila nodded. "Not as we were, but as we are meant to be." Ren smiled. "Humanity is not just a planet or a body. It is a light that never goes out." Mila placed her hand on his arm. "And now, we shine together, far away." Dallin listened to the growing chorus of voices. He knew the journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead. But for the first time, he felt that humanity was truly free. In the cradle, the story of humanity continued stronger, brighter, and full of promise. And the universe, once dark and divided, now held a new light, a light born of hope, peace, and the endless strength of the human spirit.